friends. Today we are going to discuss about Mano Nyay Clinic. This is the scheme released by National Legal Service Authority for persons with mental illness and for persons with intellectual disability. This was released in September 2024. I am Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry, working at National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be discussing about this NALSA scheme released for persons with mental illness and also for persons with intellectual disability. This scheme comes under Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. To download this complete report, please do scan this QR code. This report has 7 chapters including messages. The first chapter is Introduction to this scheme. The second chapter discusses about the objectives of the scheme. Third is regarding definition. Fourth is regarding legal and policy framework for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. Fifth chapter is very essential, that is actions and interventions under the scheme. Sixth chapter is responsibility of legal services providers and institution. And finally, reporting and monitoring. This is 52-page document, my dear friend. The report starts with message. This message was given by none other than the Chief Justice of India, Dr. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. Since this was released in September 2024, he was the Chief Justice at that time. The second message was given by Sanjeev Khanna, Judge, Supreme Court of India, and Executive Chairman of National Legal Service Authority. The third message was by the member secretary of NALSA. And in his message, he has acknowledged the contribution of NIMANS for this report. So let's discuss about the chapter 1. This report stands on 3 important phenomena. That means this report or this scheme was updated and revised from the 2015 scheme for persons with mental illness under NALSA. This scheme is a 3-pronged approach. The first one is importance is given for responsiveness. That means persons with mental illness and intellectual disability, invariably they have unique needs and challenges. Hence, the legal services and the justice system in India should be responsive for their needs. At the same time, it also talks about making access to rights and justice for these people. And finally, strengthening the infrastructure by establishing Mano Nyay Clinic. So let's discuss about this 3 important 3-pronged approach by NALSA Scheme 2024. The whole scheme is under the National Legal Service Authority Act 1987. Under Section 12D, which clearly talks about for persons with mental illness, and also the G also talks about persons with mental illness institution where these people are kept. Invariably, the persons with mental illness are facing various challenges in their life. They may not be aware of their rights. They may not be aware they are suffering from mental illness. They are admitted in the hospital. Hence, their rights needs to be upheld. Further, another important legislation was Right to Persons with Disability Act 2016. Under Section 7, subsection 4C talks about legal aid. And the third important is Mental Health Care Act of 2017, Section 27, subsection 1 talks about right to legal aid for persons with mental illness. So this introduction clearly talks about this scheme is for specifically for persons with mental illness and also for persons with intellectual disability. The main reason is these are the people who are the weaker section of the society. They are not counted. Invariably, they are considered as invalid, not only by the community, many a time by their family members. Their rights are violated every second. Hence, this legislation under the National Legal Service Authority 1987, the NALSA scheme came for protection of rights of persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. So these are the three important legislation which protects the rights of the people who are suffering from mental illness and also for intellectual disability. Now let's look into what are the objectives of this scheme. The scheme clearly says we need to ensure legal aid services which are responsive to the needs and challenges of persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. That means you cannot just provide the same justice or the same court system. We need to be responsive for the challenges and needs of these people. Second one is we need to make the justice accessible to them. Accessible for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. It may be matters with regard to civil, criminal, administrative, and any other legal cases. Third one is we need to create a specialized unit of legal aid lawyers and paralegal volunteers in every district who knows what are the challenges faced by persons with mental illness and persons with intellectual disability, so that they provide services so that the justice can be taken to their doorsteps. The fourth one is this scheme also ensures to have access to the schemes, programs, facilities equally with others which are provided by the government. Invariably, any social welfare measures, the people who are marginalized, who are discriminated, do not get benefit of these social welfare measures. Hence, this scheme makes an attempt so that these social welfare measures are accessible to them. Further, it also talks about providing information with regard to their rights, with regard to their violations which they are undergoing, so that they know how to protect their rights and the legal aid will be available for their protection. Sixth one is to collaborate with governmental, non-governmental, various other NGOs, organization, universities, academics to strengthen the ecosystem to protect the rights of persons with mental illness and persons with intellectual disability. These are the broad 6 objectives have been kept for this scheme. Chapter 2 talks about definition. Definition of intellectual disability is as per the RPWD Act. That is Right to Persons with Disability Act. Here it is SLD, autism spectrum disorder, and mental retardation is also been included. In this scheme, many a time legal services have been utilized as a word frequently. So you need to know what is this legal services. Legal services under the scheme means any services in the conduct of any case or other legal proceedings before any court or any authority or tribunal and giving advice on any legal matter. That means it talks about conducting a case, filing a case, providing financial aid, providing the legal counsel to run the case, educating the plaintiff, upholding the rights of persons with mental illness. So these kinds of services which are given are considered as legal services. Further, this scheme also talks about reasonable accommodation. What does it mean by reasonable accommodation? Means necessary and appropriate modification and adjustments without imposing a disproportionate or undue burden in a particular case to ensure to persons with disability the enjoyment or exercise of rights equally with others. That means it provides some kind of accommodation so that the undue burden is not placed on them. Chapter 4 gives a legal and policy framework for this scheme. That means the scheme is there means there will be efforts by the National Legal Service Authority, State Legal Service Authority, District Legal Service Authority, and Taluk Legal Service Authority. Since the judiciary is involved, there should be a legal framework under which the finance is sanctioned, and also whom is the beneficiary, how it is given. And there should be a legal framework. Although we know we have a National Legal Service Authority, that is NALSA, under the Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. But there is a constitutional provision which talks about Article 14, Article 22, and Article 39A, which provides rights for those people who are marginalized and discriminated. We need to make sure their legal rights are protected. They are equal to any other person in front of the eyes of the law. So these constitutional provisions are made clearly in the Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. The next important was National Trust Act for Autism, Cerebral Palsy, and Multiple Disability, 1999. Here also, this talks about protecting the persons who have autism, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, and multiple disability. The third important legislation is Right to Persons with Disability Act of 2016, which gives a bouquet of rights for persons with disability. And finally, Mental Health Care Act of 2017. Again, for the first time in the history of India, a statute which gives a complete mental health access to mental health as a right. This is not just a right. This right can be enforceable through the court. That means if you approach a court and say, there is no mental health services are provided in my district, the court will take action, and the cost which is required to get the treatment in any other district, that reimbursement will be given. That means it is enforceable rights through the judiciary. So the first time when mental health has come into picture. Now let's look into the policy framework. The government of India started National Mental Health Program in 1982, again which was pioneered by National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Later, the action plan became a district mental health program, and now it is implemented almost every district in the country. The next important was Mental Health Policy Document 2014. This document talks about preventive, promotive, early diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. So this policy document plays a crucial role for this scheme. The third one is National Suicide Prevention Strategy 2022, released by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, so that we can prevent suicide and also decrease the numbers which are occurring. Finally, the National Tele-Mental Health Program, easily called as Telemanas, was released and implemented in 2022. It is a toll-free number 14416 for people who are in distress requiring help with regard to mental health, can make a free call and get advice. So these are the various policy framework which is there from the government of India, so that every citizen in the country can get access to mental health care services. If you look at the policy document, as I mentioned, National Mental Health Program, under that we have a district mental health program which has the components of services, capacity building, and awareness generation, and there is a DMHP team. Similarly, with regard to law, we have Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. Under that, we have statutory bodies such as National Legal Service Authority at Delhi, and also Supreme Court Legal Service Committee at Delhi, and we have State Legal Service Authority at every state, and also High Court Legal Service Committee in every High Court. From there, we have District Legal Service Authority in every district court, and also panel of lawyers. From there, Taluk Legal Service Committee. So my dear friend, these are the statutory bodies under the Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. So this legal service authority clearly makes an attempt to take justice to the doorsteps. This is an innovative and also an important step towards making justice available to everyone. Chapter 5 is the actions and interventions under the scheme. This is where Mano Nyay Clinic is formed. It is also called as LSUM. LSUM means Legal Service Unit for persons with mental illness and persons with intellectual disability. This Mano Nyay Clinic, or also called as LSUM, Legal Service Unit for persons with mental illness, will be established by State Legal Service Authority in every district. This Mano Nyay Clinic will be headed by the member secretary of District Legal Service Authority, and also there will be a deputy who is a legal aid counsel in the district. Further, one retired judicial officer will be assisting them, and at least 6 panel lawyers and 10 paralegal volunteers will be recruited on honorary basis. Further, one lawyer and also 2 paralegal volunteers will be deputed for Taluk Legal Service Authority. So, my dear friends, here there is a Mano Nyay Clinic which will be established in every district, specifically for persons with mental illness and for persons with intellectual disability. And it will be headed by Member Secretary of District Legal Service Authority and also Deputy Legal Aid Defense Counsel, that is a advocate, one retired judicial officer. So these people will work towards upholding the rights of persons with mental illness and persons with intellectual disability. The important responsibilities under this Mano Nyay Clinic is training and capacity building of various stakeholders. Starts from judiciary, advocates, paralegal volunteers, community, prison, police, executives, and policymakers. Further, list of experts, specialized institutions within the district, mental health service provider, counselors, disability networking agencies, NGOs list will be made available for this Mano Nyay Clinic so that services can be provided and also help can be provided for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. Not only that, Mano Nyay Clinic will do outreach programs, awareness programs. What does it mean? In this, they will disseminate information, education, and communication with regard to legal rights. What are the rights bestowed under the RPWD Act, Mental Health Care Act, National Trust Act, and how they can protect their rights, how this Mano Nyay Clinic will be able to help them. And this is not only done in the district. This team also will go to various taluka places. Whenever the district mental health program team, that is DMHP team, visits taluk, that means outreach program. Whenever there is a camp in the remote places by the district mental health program team, Mano Nyay Clinic team also will visit with them, will raise awareness, will engage various stakeholders, and also provide justice in these camps. What are the rights for which this Mano Nyay Clinic will fight? The legal intervention to protect the rights of persons with mental illness under Mental Health Care Act of 2017 talks about right to legal aid, right to make advance directives and nominated representative, right to access for mental health care, right to community living, right to access medical records, right to confidentiality, right to information, right to personal contact and communication, right to make complaint and deficiency in provision of services. These are the bouquet of rights which have been bestowed by our Parliament in Mental Health Care Act of 2017 under Chapter 5 from Section 18 to 28. This Mano Nyay Clinic will fight for the rights of persons with mental illness under this legislation. Further, this Mano Nyay Clinic also will fight for the rights of the disabled people, specifically for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. They will fight for right to equality and non-discrimination, right to community living, right to protection from cruel, inhuman treatment, right to protection for abuse and violence and exploitation, right to protection and safety, right to home and family, right to reproduction and family rights, right to accessibility in voting, right to access for justice, right to protection of legal capacity, right to support of a guardian, and right to inclusive education. Again, under this Right to Persons with Disability Act, this statute enumerates the rights of persons with mental illness and mental retardation. Further, Mano Nyay Clinic also will be established in various mental health establishments, that means in mental hospitals. Wherever there is a huge number of patients are there, in mental hospitals, inpatient care is there, the District Legal Service Authority can establish Mano Nyay legal services in these mental health establishments. Further, legal services also will be provided at various police stations, sensitization of the police, under Mental Health Care Act of 2017, Section 100, 101, and 102. Not only that, they'll also will look after Section 103 for prisoners with mental illness. Further, this Mano Nyay Clinic also will be established in various railway station, bus stand, metro stations, hospitals, wherever there are people, so that the people can avail these legal services free of cost. NALSA helpline 1500 is the 15100 is the helpline, and telemanus number is 14416. Further, legal services also will be established in the court, in prisons, so that persons with mental illness and persons with intellectual disability can access justice. Further, this scheme also talks about establishing Mano Nyay Clinic in beggars' home, women's protection home, childcare institutions, and other institutions which are custodial care is there, where there is a high possibility of rights violation leading to mental illness, or a person with mental illness rights are violated. This services also talks about providing legal services at doorstep. That means if a person with mental illness or a person with intellectual disability is homebound, is unable to come outside, it can be dementia patients, geriatric patients who have mental illness, they are unable to come outside and access their justice. A phone call to a district legal service authority will swing this Mano Nyay Clinic into action. This Mano Nyay Clinic paralegal volunteer and the advocate will visit the house, will look into the matter. They will keep the unique challenges and needs of the persons with mental illness and provide services. Further, this Mano Nyay Clinic also will fight for the rights and also welfare schemes provided by the government, especially from the state. Many a time they may not get the disability certificate. Many a time they do not get the pension because of the bureaucratic hurdles. In such a scenario, this Mano Nyay Clinic will fight for their justice. And these legal services are available even at the taluka place, or else it is considered as a tehsil. There also it is available. Sixth one is responsibility of these legal services providers and institutions. Service providers are basically judiciary, advocate, paralegal volunteers, and also, of course, doctors and various other social working agencies. Here, paralegal volunteers, panel lawyers, judiciary needs to be educated about the unique needs and challenges of persons with mental illness and also intellectual disability. We need to explain about their rights, how to approach them, how to provide rights, and uphold their rights. Further, this scheme also talks about pre-trial preparation. That means, imagine a person with mental retardation, that is intellectual disability, has to fight his case and he has to go to court. In the court, it will be very difficult for him to understand what is going there. Hence, you need to take a person with intellectual disability to the court, show how is the court looks, how to behave in the court, where he should be seated, when he has to speak. That is a like kind of a workshop has to be done so that the advocate knows the unique challenges of the person with mental retardation and persons with mental illness, so that the pre trial preparation will help to get the justice. Further, this scheme talks about responsibilities and roles of district legal service authority, state legal service authority, and national legal service authority. They are listed out in this scheme. And majority of the judiciary in our country is highly responsive towards the needs of persons with mental illness. If you look at the history, the only pillar which supported the persons with mental illness and the intellectual disability is the judiciary. A series of landmark judgments are in support of persons with mental illness. As a collective society, we failed, but not the judiciary. Again, the judiciary has stood now with this NALSA scheme for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability through Mano Nyay Clinic. Final chapter is reporting and monitoring, because there is funding, accountability. Hence, this National Legal Service Authority, State Legal Service Authority, District Legal Service Authority needs to submit report in various formats. What are their activities? What services they have given? Legal services were provided in various mental health establishment, police station. How many beneficiaries? Those needs to be reported every 6 months once. To conclude, my dear friends, we have various legislations such as National Trust Act, Right to Persons with Disability Act, Mental Health Care Act of 2017. Although these legislations are there, but they are not implemented. Hence, the judiciary has taken a proactive step through Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. They have taken a proactive step in formulating an important scheme for persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. These are the people who are marginalized, discriminated, and they are considered as invalid in our society. Hence, the judiciary has taken a proactive step through NALSA so that we can protect the rights of persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. This scheme by the NALSA is a three-pronged approach to protect the rights of persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. This scheme is a revised, updated scheme of 2015, implemented in 2024 September. This scheme is very responsive for the unique challenges and needs of persons with mental illness and intellectual disability, and it will fight for the access to rights of justice of persons with mental illness, and also it strengthens the infrastructure through Mano Nyay Clinic to be established in every district legal service authority with paralegal volunteers and advocates so that they can take justice to the doorsteps. This is a revolutionary step which has been taken under the NALSA through Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. So, my dear friend, Mano Nyay Clinic is going to help persons with mental illness and intellectual disability. If you have any doubts with regard to Legal Service Authority, please do call the helpline 15100. If you want to have any kind of mental health services, Telemanus 14416 is the helpline. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Stay safe.